If you listen to the show, you already know that we cannot exist without our sponsors. They are the ones who make things happen behind the scenes. So let's acknowledge Fuji Sports. We've been working with these guys for a while now, not only as far as this podcast is concerned, but also at the ROL Academy. We've had their gear. I personally use their gis. What a phenomenal product.
Yeah, I mean, jiu-jitsu, judo, MMA, tape, bags, anything you need for your jiu-jitsu journey, you can find at fujisports.com.
Let's talk ROL TV. There's so much content on there. It's ridiculous at this point. But I think what is even more intriguing, as time went on during the project, we've been recording most of the events that were taking place here at ROL Academy. At this point, I mean, we have guys like Chris Howder, Armin Fati, Rafael Lovato Senior, and Pete the Greek. I mean, there were so many different events that we've kind of recorded it. Don't you think that's amazing? I mean, points of reflection and kind of going back for all the students to see what really happened and refresh their memory.
Yeah, I think it's great, you know, being able to go back and look at all these high-level practitioners, Octavio Cudo, like one of the names you didn't mention. And I mean, just these guys that have been doing this for so long come in, teach these amazing seminars and workshops, and it's all recorded and there for you to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you want to get additional savings on all this, type in code ROL Radio at the coupon and get additional 30% off of your membership.
Nice. Go to rolacademy.tv. What's up, everyone, and welcome back. If you haven't already, please remember to hit the like, share, subscribe, download, listen, and whatever other button there is, and leave us a review wherever you do listen. That ensures that we can continue bringing you the great guests and amazing content that you have come to expect. On this episode, Viktor Doria discusses why you only pass the guard once, what it was like coming up under Carlson Gracie Senior, how the business of jiu-jitsu has changed the art, and why he believes jiu-jitsu should never be an Olympic sport. Here is the ROL Radio with Sergio Souza, black belt, multi-time Worlds and Pan American champion, and a man who has trained with some of the biggest names in BJJ, Viktor Doria.
Welcome to ROL Radio.
And we are live.
Here we go.
It seems like all the things are lining up. Like,
oh, yeah?
This is episode 150.
Uh-huh.
And we just had anniversary at the Academy.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Everything's kind of leaning into the same direction.
So,
how was your weekend, by the way?
My weekend was busy. Well, we were here for the anniversary on Saturday, and that
9
went
years.
great.
Can you
9
believe this?
years. Yeah, I've been around for 6 of them, something like that. Yeah, so that's amazing. Congratulations.
I've been around for 9.
You've been around for all 9? Yeah, really? That's good. But it was a great turnout. Alberto Crane was here.
Yeah,
that was amazing. I've talked to him a couple times over the past couple years, but it was the first time we were actually in a room together. So it was wonderful to hang out with him for a little bit and learn on the mat from him, and then hang out a little bit socially as well. His wife was with him. Edith, she's fantastic, really great people. So it was a great weekend. How about you?
I mean, we should bring him on the show one more time, because he is the one who essentially started the show, right? Episode 1.
He was episode 2 technically, but the first one with a guest. Yeah, he was our first guest, and I always like to talk about how when we told him that after the episode, he looked at us like, "What did I do? Why was I wasting my time with these idiots?" But now, I mean, we've built a great relationship, and I just can't wait to see what comes up after.
Yeah. But I do encourage you guys to go scroll all the way to the bottom of the list of episodes and listen to his, because it is an interesting one.
Yeah,
it was shot in the middle of the
stuff.
pandemic, and there's everything from jiu-jitsu love to violence and even gun conversation and all the other stuff. It's crazy.
Yes.
That conversation was very unpredictable. But yet, here we are, 150 episodes, 149 episodes later, 150th episode for us. So small milestones. Congratulations to you.
Yep.
For putting up with me for that.
Yeah, it's rough. And every time we hit one of these milestones, I always remember that Gringo Ryan says the average episode total for a podcast is 7. So whether or not you like us, we've made it At least we've made it past 7.
We are too stupid to quit.
Yep.
And we got some good one books. But anyhow, great weekend.
Yeah.
Great stuff going on. And then before we start with our guests, don't forget to go to our website, cast a vote, send us your suggestions or your likes for the best episodes that we've done so far. We want to hear your feedback. And as always, we'll be drawing some cool T-shirts and membership to ROL TV if you're interested in any of this. Or if you're not, then still drop us a comment online because we actually care.
Yeah, we love to hear from you.
Yeah, we love to hear from you. All right, shall we bring Professor Viktor? How are you?
Doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're fantastic.
You know, one of the things that I noticed about you that you are always smiling. Are you a happy guy? Are you a happy guy?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I'm a happy guy. Yeah, I'm not always smiling. People complain about my, angry face sometimes.
Well,
Like, a cyborg calls me the grumpy one here.
Oh,
So,
really? Then that's
we
hard
have-
to...
You and I have something in common.
that's what we call him all the time.
He even gave me a hat says "Grumpy Man."
I need one.
Yeah, well,
I don't agree with him at all.
well, but listen, I watched some of the videos of you from competition and from instructionals. Coincidentally, you wearing BJJ Fanatics T-shirt, but I watched some of it, and I always feel bad for the guy on the bottom. I mean, your guard passing, oh Lord, is relentless. I mean, that pressure, it has to be. I don't know. I don't want to be part of it. I mean, that was my takeaway from it.
Yeah, I learned from the best.
So what? So let's dig into that a little bit. Why pressure passing? Why this relentless pressure and slow, miserable for the guy on the bottom? Where's this coming from?
So I came from Carlson Gracie Original School in Copacabana, Rio de Janeiro. So I started that in 1993. And if you guys are not aware, like Carlson Gracie Senior is the master of pressure passing. He would cook people underneath him and just make their lives miserable for as long as he could. This is a concept, and I'm all about concepts, so I learned a lot from him as a concept to actually exhaust the guy on bottom and make sure that once you get past his guard, like one thing that I learned from him is you only pass the guy's guard once, because if he's recovering guard and playing guard again, you're not doing a good job passing. So once you start passing, I would take like a good 4 to 5, maybe 6 minutes passing the guard in a 10-minute fight, and on the 7th minute, I would end up on the side control or mounting or whatever it is. But he doesn't want to play guard anymore. Like he's just there, just to not tap. He'll try his best not to tap. And I see, like, for instance, Roger Gracie, he was the most effective one in the modern days that I could see doing it, because he would pass the guy's guard in 5, maybe 6 minutes. And once he's passed, is mount and finish, because you just can't do anything else, because he already took your soul out, So that's what I learned from my days back at Carlson Gracie in Copacabana in Rio. And I trained with a lot of great passers like Amaury Bittetti, Carlson Gracie Jr., and so many others that would, like Murilo Bustamante, all these guys. I learned from them, like, just by seeing them train or fight. And then I will ask, okay, what did you do here? How does that work? And I ended up learning it, in my opinion, from the best.
Yeah, and we had Bustamante on the show, a year ago or so? Yeah, mm-hmm. So yeah, we had these interesting conversations with him, and I can completely relate with you, because I started with Carlson Gracie Senior way back in the day when he was still alive here in Chicago, and I remember these training sessions where guard passing, it was just miserable. Oh my God. There was no such thing. He always told us 2 things. He said, you only pass the guard once, and that's what you just said. And second one was, if somebody wants to submit you, they will the hell work for it. There's no easy submissions. You're going to make them pay for every inch. I like it. Right? So he was known for that heavy pressure passing method of jiu-jitsu. And I remember us drilling. I remember days. Do you remember that stuff like this? Like I remember drilling, like passing the guard, but we did it over and over and over and over, and we were almost sick of it.
I'll tell you what, back in the day at Carlson Gracie, there was no like drilling or a lot of technique involved in the training. I myself didn't get to learn too much from Master Carlson Gracie Senior teaching on the mats. When I got there in 1993, he was already he tired of like putting his gi every day and going to the mats, but he would be there and he would correct people's moves, mistakes, and like he would correct the best guys you ever heard of. He would be like, okay, this is crap. Okay, he would stop, for instance, Cássio Cardoso, or he would stop Murilo Bustamante, or he would stop Ricardo de la Riva on the fly and say, hey, what you're doing is terrible. Let me fix it. And he would fix these big names right then and there. And they would look at him, like looking up to him and say, okay, teach me. And he would do that in the simplicity that only Carlson Gracie would have, like very simply just saying, okay, this is wrong. Let me show how it's right. And he would show it quickly and it would change your game forever. Like just one move, like 30 seconds.
So when you were there at that time, whether he's there or he's not there, but part of that team with some of these big names, De La Riva, Bustamante, and so on, are you realizing who is around you? Like, do you realize the amount of people, amount of champions they are in that room at that moment?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. Even before I went to jiu-jitsu, Rio used to breathe jiu-jitsu. So even though I used to play water polo. I used to play for the national team in water polo, and until I was 17, from early teens until 17, I was playing, and my brother still plays to this day. And I ended up involved in a brawl, in a fight, in a training session in the pool. I punched this guy, which was one of the bigger names in the pool there, and I got expelled from the team for that reason. And when I got expelled, I didn't see myself moving to another team because we had too many enemies in other teams. So my cousin Felipe, he told me, "Hey, Victor, I think that you need something." Like, he used to do jiu-jitsu and he was a blue belt back then. And he said, "I'll take you to the gym just so you can try jiu-jitsu because it's going to be good for you for sure." And so he took me to Copacabana, to Carlson Gracie Academy. And in June 1993, I bought my first gi and I started training. But I knew already who Valide Ismail was, who Murilo Bustamante was, who all these bigger names were, because, let me just turn it off. Okay. Because before I started jiu-jitsu, back in 1991, that huge Vale Tudo between jiu-jitsu and luta libre happened. It took place in Rio, and I watched it, and I was amazed by the efficacy and the efficiency of the art of jiu-jitsu. So from that day all the way to 1993, 2 years later, I was like, man, if I ever do something like martial arts driven, I will do a jiu-jitsu. And then I started there. So I knew the name. So answering your question, yes, I was aware of those big names and those big dudes that were there. I just didn't know how much they knew and how little I knew myself, how to defend myself at all. Like I started training with like yellow belts that would like kick my butt every day. And I was a big dude already. Like I was 90 kilos, like 200 pounds when I was 17.
So you are 17 when you're starting? Is that what it is?
Yeah, 17, yeah.
So you go there for the very first day. And for those who don't know, I mean, Carlson Gracie Gym at that time is probably the best in what they do as far as competition jiu-jitsu.
For a while. That was the case for a good like probably 5-6 years after I got there. Like before, there was like Carlson Gracie team would win from roosterweight to absolute all brackets were like closeouts because first and second were Carlson Gracie's. So they would win everything from top to bottom, from A to Z, you know?
So you go in there, and this is probably the most competitive and the best gym at that time.
Yeah.
You walk in, you are 17. What's inside your mind?
I saw these guys. It felt like a sauna, like a steam room. It was so hot in there, so hot, and we don't have AC.
No.
Jiu-Jitsu academies with AC in Rio, so there's no such thing.
So I heard there was not even a fan in the ceiling. I've never been there, but I heard there was not even a fan in the ceiling.
Not when I got there. There was a fan, but it didn't work, so it's like it wasn't there. So yeah, me watching all these guys in like doing, and I remember quite well, like Carlson Gracie Jr. saying, "Hey, careful with this triangle. Careful with this guy. He's a specialist in triangle. The other guy is a specialist in omoplatas and all that." And I was looking at the position and said, "I don't even know what they're doing. Like and how come they're specialists?" So I'm like 2 months in, I looked at myself and I said, I would never learn that shit. It's so difficult, so darn difficult. And then you start learning. It's funny because I made it to black belt in 6 years. And people say, oh, when you get to black belts, then you're a black belt. Then that's when it starts. And it sounds like it's stupid, like it's a motto, but it's actually, it's more than true, because it took me 6 years from white to black belt. And I've been a black belt for 23 and a half years now. So I'll get my 6th stripe in December from the hands of Master Carlson Gracie Jr. And in those 20, like, I learned so much more in my life as a black belt than I learned from white to black. So that means that from white to black, it's like an internship. You don't know anything. And I won worlds in color belts, and I won a lot of tournaments, and I thought I knew something. Okay, listen to this. So I came from worlds 1998, brown belt, absolute, all that stuff. I show up at the gym on Monday, like I felt like $1 million. I did amazing at the tournament. I show up at the gym, and Amaury Bitetti start talking to Master Carlson, say, "Hey, Master, I think that Viktor Doria deserves his black belt now." And I was like a year and a half as a brown belt, and Master Carlson said, "I don't think so. Like, he just got his brown belt. Oh, but he just won everything and all that stuff." And he asks me, "Hey, do you think you deserve your black belt?" I said, "Master, honestly, I don't know." And he goes, "Oh, you don't know? We're about to find out. Hold on." and he calls Ricardo Liborio. He goes, "Libo, roll with the kid because he doesn't know if he deserves his black belt." And Libo, he tapped me probably, I think, 7 or 8 times in 10 minutes. Me being a 100 kilo, 220 pound brown belt champion. Mm-hmm. And he submitted it like in straight arm bars, arm locks, everything he could shoot in my arms. He got me like 8 times in 10 minutes.
So did you deserve the black belt?
Yeah, I was going to say, did you get it?
I stayed at brown belt until the end of 1999. So it took me another year and a half to get my black belt.
Yeah. What an eye-opening moment.
Oh yeah.
But first of all, like I'm thinking about it. How do you answer that question? If you say yes, he's going to prove you wrong. Lose. If you say no, that's not a good answer either. So it's
actually, the right answer is no.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I figured out
the hard way.
Yeah.
The hard way. Go back to the very first day when you were there. When you walk in for the very, very first day, what does this look like? I think students today have a very different view of what academies are like. Especially Copacabana over there, that in way back in the 90s was very, very different to what we are used to today. Yeah. You walk in, you're 17, you know of jiu-jitsu, but you definitely don't know jiu-jitsu. What is that? Is it a class? Is it sparring sessions? What's happening that day for you?
So as I was saying, when I walked in, I went through all those 3 sets of stairs all the way to the 3rd floor. When I got there, and I walked into the room. It was a packed room, maybe 60, 70 guys in like it was like a sauna. It was so hot in there. Everybody in their gis are gray. They're not white. There were no white gis back then. They're all like some sort of sand color, like something like. Yeah, and you only have one or maybe two gis. You don't have 6 gis. Like today, I have maybe 25 gis hanging in here. But back then, everybody only had 1 gi, maybe 2. And in Brazil, you don't have drying machine. You only have washing machine. So you wash your gi and you put it out to dry. You hang it out to dry. So it dries to the next day. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. So either you wear your kind of wet gi or you have a second gi to alternate. But still, like there were no special soaps or stuff like that. So it's always stinking and it's always looking bad. It was kind of greasy. So all these 60, 70 guys, maybe 80% were blue belts. There were like maybe a handful of purple belts, maybe 3 or 4 brown belts, and 2 black belts. Because back in the day, blue belts were the shit. Like you were like people. Okay, he's a blue belt from Carlson Gracie. He's a blue belt from Gracie Barra. He's a blue belt from a master. I mean, master. I don't know if you know, but Master Academy was what became Alliance.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
So before Master, it was Jacaré and Fábio Gurgel.
Gurgel, yep.
Right, and then they joined forces. Even though Fábio Gurgel was Jacaré's student, so. Like Master was a big gym in Ipanema, and all these guys, same thing, a lot of badasses there. And so you would I showed up at the gym, I saw all that, and like blue belts were the shit. Purple belts were, wow, I would love to hang out with a purple belt. I would love to be friends with a purple belt. Brown belts, maybe they'll talk to you. Maybe they'll say good evening or stuff like that. And black belts were aliens. They were like maybe 7 in real, like 10 that I would know. So they weren't there. Like it's like Alan Goyes back in the day, he was a brown belt when I got there. You know, Ricardo Libori was a brown belt when I got to the gym. So all of these guys were like, Master Carlson Gracie Jr. was a brown belt when I got there. You know, so it was like a long time ago. It was completely different scene, jiu-jitsu scene. And Rio was that steaming pot, that crazy atmosphere of jiu-jitsu everywhere, where you go to the beach and people were hanging out with gi pants and they're sitting in their gi on their gis in the sand. And girls would love jiu-jitsu fighters even more than they loved surfers or soccer players or anything like that. So we would take over the whole city. And then it turned. And nowadays, I was in Rio last week, and you don't see that anymore. You don't see that amount of gyms, the academies, you don't see the people hanging out in gis. Unfortunately, like it's gone in Rio. Like you have great academies, still great professors, but it's not even close to what it was back then.
Why do you think that happened? Why do you think that faded away?
There was no money to be made in jiu-jitsu back then. Like all the jiu-jitsu academies, they were just trying to live, trying to survive. And most of the people didn't pay for their membership. So you wouldn't, and the professors didn't know any business. They wouldn't charge. And so that was like the case. So people couldn't make money. It was tough to afford a living in Rio with a jiu-jitsu gym. Some of them were successful. Alliance changed it. Gracie Barra became a big thing. Now you have Kira Gracie doing great with her gym, but this is completely different mentality. So I'm glad that I see like Kira Gracie and her gym core doing great, and Alliance grew a lot, and you have Gracie Barra probably I don't know about their numbers, but they're probably succeeding because they have a very good business model. But back then, no one was making money. So people got tired of not making money, you know? So most of them moved to the US. Some of them moved to Europe, and that's where they are now. And some of them moved to Sao Paulo because the city of Sao Paulo has a lot of. It feels like it's Rio 30 years ago. Sao Paulo is breathing way more jiu-jitsu than Rio was. Than Rio is right now. So you have very successful academies in Sao Paulo right now, people making money with their academies, and jiu-jitsu providing, they can provide for their family through jiu-jitsu, even by fighting or by having their own academies and their own teams. So it's happening. You see, like G13, Roberto Godoy's academy is very successful. Every time I go to Sao Paulo, I have the pleasure to go there. I would say we're good friends, but I respect him a lot. We fought a couple of times, and I'm always super welcome in his academy. So I always go there. I have very good friends there, and it's a very successful academy, and like so many other in Sao Paulo.
It's great to see that jiu-jitsu didn't completely disappear from Brazil. Right, there's still points of success as all of this is unfolding, because you do talk about important things, that a lot of those black belts and old school guys have moved all around the world. I mean, right. Europe is very saturated with jiu-jitsu today, especially UK, and obviously United States. Everybody is all over everywhere because that opportunity to make living on it, an opportunity to make money. At the same time, I think it's good that we can still see jiu-jitsu growing, especially Kira Gracie doing phenomenal things. And really, this is fairly new, just a few years old, right? When her academy opened. So this is new stuff. I'm gonna ask you to go back in that first week, first month at the Carlson Gracie over there. Do you remember your very first ROL, very first active training session over there as it was taking place? Was it the first day or maybe following day?
The second or third day that I went there to train, I got to roll with a yellow belt. A yellow belt. His name was Mauro Schwing. So Mauro is, I think, the older brother of Nathan Schwing, which is like a very, very condecorated black belt in Brazil right now. And Mauro, he popped my arm right there. I was 17. He was probably 15 or 16. He popped my arm right there.
And yeah, so you were like, let's do that. I want to come back.
I mean, we're different, man. Brazilians from Rio back in that day were completely different. That made me like, okay, I want to be able to do that. Even though I can't move my arm, I think it's gonna get better. And I wound up learning that stuff, and I need to learn that craft, And so I went back. But yes, it was like some sort of Darwinism, like survival of the fittest. If you're not fit, you're not going to be able to be there. So it wasn't commercial. It wasn't It wasn't like people, it wasn't attracting clients.
Yeah.
They wouldn't care about the clientele. Like if you want to be a badass in jiu-jitsu, if you want to be a champion, join us. If you don't, just
don't come
get out of here. They don't care.
Yeah. And a lot of the guys, a lot of the guys talked about that. And from Draculino to, we had Liberio here too. And he talked about some of the old school stories. And it's almost the same thing every single time. Is like, listen, if you don't like getting beat up, don't come in. Like, don't even show up. Don't even show up. You will get beat up. You will get this. You're going to be submitted. You're going to hate it. But at the same time, this is going to make you tougher. Now, today, it's very different. Right? Today, especially in this country, in the U.S., safety is extremely important to many. We know if we get hurt, our clients leave. Leave, we're not making money, especially for the successful academies. Do you think, and I'm going to put you on the line here, I'm going to ask you a tough question, but do you think that jiu-jitsu has gotten softer because of that mentality?
Softer than
what it was back then in 90s in Europe.
1,000%. But I wouldn't use the word soft because I think it evolved into a real business. It became a real business. It became a real craft. Like it became a company. Like gyms and academies are now like small companies that are able to succeed and maybe breed other academies. And it was needed. This needed to happen. It took too long. Like, for instance, IBJJF, which became before it was just CBJJ, and it's still CBJJ / IBJJF. So CBJJ started in 1994. It started at Carlos Gracie Jr.'s house in Barra da Tijuca. So I did my first membership right there with like typing machines, and I think that the lady that used to work like as the person that used to cook there for him used to work there or something like that. And now it became this, like, it took 30 years to get where we are. And we still have so much to grow. Like when did CrossFit became a thing? Like 12 years ago?
Yeah.
And now it's almost in the freaking Olympics.
Yeah.
You know? So it's so different. Like jiu-jitsu took so long to get where we are now, and we're still so far away from ideal. From like it grew a lot, but like this weekend, like yesterday, we had the finals, the black belt finals at Brasileiros at Brazilian Nationals. Still, there's so much like ground to cover in order to make it a very serious event, very well organized, even though it's so much better than the days at Tijuca Tennis Club in Rio. But it's nowhere close to a judo tournament or anything like that. Like the AJP tour is way more organized, and you don't have the microphone screaming at you. You don't have all that people around the mat area that you shouldn't have, because the people there are, even though I love them and good friends, the people they're working at BJF, they're from my days. They were blue belts with me. You know, so they carry that seed of casca grossa inside them. Like, and when they do the tournaments, they try to do as good as it can be done, but still they have their mentality of back in the day, and some things don't bother him that much. Okay, it's way better than it was, Victor, so it's good. It could be much better now.
If you had to pinpoint one thing that you wish it changed at IBJJF, what would it be?
Black belts should fight for 6 minutes, not 10.
So you are not the first person.
Yeah, that comes up a lot lately.
You're not the first person who says this. The conversations with us. Why? Why do you think that's important?
Because for 5 or 6 minutes, they're just stalling and looking at the clock, and they start fighting at 6 or 7 minutes in. So we could use better our time in training and everything else. Like if you train for a tournament where you're fighting for 6 minutes, it's a much different pace. It's a much different way of training. It's a much different routine day in, day out. You're not going to get injured as much. You're not going to be rolling 10 out of 10 like we used to do back in the day. And people still do nowadays, because it's useless. I don't, it's not that I don't like, I don't think you need to fight for 10 minutes to showcase your jiu-jitsu and to prove a point, or to show how good you are, or to beat someone. And people come to me and say, the real jiu-jitsu is back in the day when there were an hour fight, but it's like, no time limit. No time limit is the most stupid thing. Oh my God. When people come with their argument like, no time limit is the basic of yeah. And back in ancient Rome, when you're fighting, the loser, the one that loses will be sacrificed. Do you think you want to go back to those days? Like, it doesn't make any sense, you know? So comparing apples to apples, like 10-minute matches they're not boring because we have so many great athletes, better than fighters, like athletes. They're like real athletes. But we could do so much better in 6 minutes. We would see way more action and not a lot of stalling in 6 minutes than we see in 10. But is it 6 or 7 or 5? I think 6 is a good number. I would do black belt 6 minutes across the board, adult and masters, and I would do all color belts 5 minutes. That's it. So color belts 5 minutes, black belts 6 minutes.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think some of this started with the fact of we'll make black belts longer matches so they can showcase more, so they have more opportunities, and they're gonna get tired. But all of this was based on the fact that there's a very dynamic matches like we saw in 90s, right? I mean, the matches were just going constantly. Now people are playing games, and now people are using first 4 or 5 minutes to just stall and do not much. And
we used to play games back then as well. It didn't change.
Really?
I would say it changed. You had great fighters back then. You have great fighters by now. You just have the amount of people is much bigger now than it was then. But I think you have people stalling today as you had 20, 30 years ago. The same way. You have dynamic fighters like Léo Vieira, like Tererê, like Margarida, like all these guys, and you have them now as well. Like you used to have people that would just not move an inch and try to win by advantage like you have now. So it didn't change. It's just more people now. So you have more of everything.
I see what you're saying.
Now you have 8,000 people at Brazilian Nationals.
Yeah.
8,000 people fighting at Brazilian Nationals. 38% were masters from 1 to 7 or to 6. I don't know exactly. But you had like a lot of kids, black belts. You had 190 fighters, 190 athletes only. I think it's a small amount compared to brown belts, which was almost 400, at Brazilian Nationals. And like, this is the one thing I would change right away would be from 10 minutes to 6 in black belt, from 8, 7, and 6 minutes on brown, purple, and blue belt, all the way to 5 minutes across the board color belts. And another thing, you said one thing, but I have to mention. There shouldn't be any world championships for color belts, only black belts.
Yeah, and that's interesting. I actually was talking to somebody else about this because it is always interesting to hear that, so and so is a world champion as a blue belt.
Exactly.
Are they really a world champion?
I'm a world champion at blue belt, and I don't even mention that unless you ask me, did you win a world champion ever in there? Yes, a blue belt, brown belt, yes, but it's not a world champion. The world champion is the black belt. And I won like 5 world master championships. I stress, I'm a world master champion. Not a world master.
Do you think they do this to create publicity, to create the sport a little bit bigger, to create an interest?
To create revenue. Create revenue. That's it. But you can't keep the revenue. Just call it world amateur.
I agree.
World amateur. In another weekend. Like, it's so stupid to have the black belts fighting after everyone fought. The black belts fighting in Saturday and Sunday. They're the professional ones. They were supposed to fight in the middle of the week. The kids should be fighting on the weekend because they study during the week. The masters should be fighting on the weekend because they work during the week. But the professionals, they don't work during the week. They train during the week. So they should be fighting Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday, whatever. And then they can go back to the weekend and coach their students. But they're coaching the whole week and then they fight. They get tired the whole week and then they fight. That's crazy. They have no voice. They're tired. They're there the whole time. They should fight first and then they'll take care of their students. That's how it should be.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
You bring out very good points. I mean, you bring out very good points. As all of this is continue evolving, and this sport continue growing, hopefully some of those changes will take place. Where do you think Jiu-Jitsu is going? It has came a very long way since 1990s from Rio and Sao Paulo, and as it continues going from Brazil, spread it all around the world. Where do you think Jiu-Jitsu is going to be in 10 years?
In more countries, in more cities, with more tournaments. I hope they don't try to take it to the Olympics because I think it's so stupid. I don't want to see Jiu-Jitsu in the Olympics at all. I don't see any like, I see a couple upsides, which are like, okay, it's gonna get super famous and India doesn't know about Jiu-Jitsu. Of course they do. They just don't practice that much. They like cricket. You know, like it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Like the mission of IBJJF, which is in their wall, says make jiu-jitsu the most practiced martial art in the world, the most famous martial art in the world. And it's there. We're there. Like it's probably the most well-known martial arts in the whole planet, because like it's a lifestyle. It's more than a sport. It's more than a martial art. It's a lifestyle. You know, it's the only martial art that you will see 70-year-old people training against each other, fighting against each other. You don't have that in any other, like you don't have that in wrestling. People, let's roll light in wrestling. Is it possible? You know,
I don't know. I don't know what. And I love my wrestling friends, but I don't know one.
No. I have a bunch of wrestling, but they agree with me. They all agree. Once you're done with your professional competition time, you're done with it.
It's over.
You don't want to see it anymore.
No, you can coach a little bit, but you can't. It's done. It's over.
You can get involved in the sport like I am, but I'm still fighting. I'm 47. I'm still fighting. I'm going to fight in Australia in a couple months. I love doing it the whole time. Like I love rolling. I want to roll until my last day on earth, you know, but I don't see any other martial arts. You're not able to carry that on forever, you know?
And not only that, I think the opportunity to start later in life is also very visible. I mean,
and do good.
Yeah, and actually do good. Absolutely. I mean, we have students who are starting at the age of 40, 50. You know, we have, how old is Zook? I don't know, 70?
He'll be mad at you for saying that. No, he's in his early 60s, very early 60s.
But like, you can see this everywhere. Not only you can train for a very long time, but also you can start much later. And it's, you know, if you take a right approach to the training, you can really do this until you know, up there, and that's the beautiful part. Do you think that the competition aspect of jiu-jitsu is necessary for the student to engage in?
No, I don't think so. I think it's very particular, and it's probably going to be something that the school, the academy that they choose to practice in, has this as a priority, or it does. Like, for instance, at Fight Sports here in Miami, we're all about competition, but we do have a lot of people that do not compete. They choose not to. I have a bunch of friends that are super strong and they're good and they will do great in competition, but they just don't want to. They just want to train, just want to roll and learn and get fit and use it as an exercise, as a daily routine, which I respect a lot. And even though I'm a competitor since day one, I don't think that everybody needs to do that. Like jiu-jitsu is so much bigger and broader than competition itself.
Do you think that there are some academies that require it's a must for a student to compete at least once per belt or whatever the criteria are? Do you think that push going into the competition is important, or it doesn't really matter?
Once again, I think it's the mentality of the headmaster at the academy, like the person in charge. If he or she has this in them, like like ingrained in them, and they want to spread this. Like Master Carlson Gracie did that to us. He's a competitor himself. Mm-hmm. He's always been. Like he created the best competitors that jiu-jitsu saw in those days, like in the 80s, the late 70s, the 80s, and the early 90s. You have the ones that were probably the best competitors to ever do it in jiu-jitsu, and they would win everything, and they would spread out in the world and teach the art of jiu-jitsu, but the art of winning. And they had it so ingrained in them that they would spread it the way they learned. And that's where the Carlson Gracie seed blossomed in so many of us, because we were all about competition. But I really don't think, I love competing, and I love when I see people that like competing and to push them. And I will always talk about competition in the training nowadays, but some of them they just don't want to be in that situation. They sometimes even go to support the team, but they themselves don't see themselves in that situation of competing, the pressure. Sometimes some of them are like, they have so much pressure in their life, in their secular lives, and they just don't want to go through that. It's too much for them. And I respect that. I don't have any problems with that whatsoever. Like, so if they decide not to compete, I think it should be their own choices. I mean, it's fine with me.
You've competed a lot over last 3 decades, or as long as you've been on the mat. Do you recall one match that was either the super tough or just like stuck in your mind, where it always keeps coming back in your mind?
Not really. Like, I had several super tough matches. I can't even pick one. If you ask me which was the match that I had, like that I had, like, it was the toughest for me because I couldn't do shit. I can tell you, if you ask me what was the match that was the most important to me, the biggest victory, those I have. But the hardest one, the toughest one, there are so many. I probably over 50 super tough matches that I didn't know if I would win or lose to the last 30 seconds.
Tell me the one that was the toughest because you couldn't do shit.
That wasn't even tough because the guy kicked my ass so bad, which was, Fernando Margarida. That was my first competition as a black belt. That was Pan Am's 2000 in Orlando, in Kissimmee. I went to the finals. It was my very first tournament as a black belt. I was 24 years old. And I lost on the finals to Margarida. I hurt my knee in the middle of the fight, but he was kicking my butt so bad. That even if I had three knees, good knees, I wouldn't do well. Like, I couldn't do shit against him. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't set up a grip, anything. He would just smash me, and I couldn't. It was like I was drowning. I was like fighting for my life the whole time. He wanted to submit me at all costs. He didn't, but he wanted to submit me at all costs. That in such a way that he didn't even score to me. It was 2-0. The fight was 2-0. But the thing is, like, he was going from sweep, that he swept me. He tried to pass my guard, which he did. End up in mounting, and I could get out of there. So it wasn't 3 seconds, not even for the pass or for the mount. So he got 2 advantages for that. And then I turned my back, and he got to my back. I had to take one of his hooks and try to turn it. So he was trying to submit me at all costs, and he didn't even care about the points. When I stood up, then the fight was over. I looked at the score. It was 2-0. I said, man, I thought it was like 20-0. Because he didn't allow time to score. He just wanted to submit me. It was crazy. I was drowning.
Let me ask you this. What do you think it's worse mentally? Experiencing something like this where you talk about, where you just getting pounded over and over, and the whole match goes on for a whole 5 or 7 minutes, whatever it is, but you get just destroyed, or getting submitted in 5 seconds?
Well, that's fortunately an experience I've never gone through. Nobody ever submitted me in 5 seconds.
But for the student, like if you were to imagine, is it going through the whole match, but you lost it, you got toyed?
Getting submitted quickly is probably the worst thing that could happen, because you're not even tired. Yeah. You would say, like, I could do so much more, but why did it end up in that hole and end up getting submitted? I wish I left. I think that the crazy way I think is, like, if I ever got caught in an armbar, I would allow them to snap my arm, because it's too early in the fight for me to tap. I don't know, but if it's a choke, like Carlson Gracie would say, like, if you choke them, they will just sleep. And there's no tough man against a choke. Yeah. So if you want to submit someone, go for the neck, because they can't resist that shit. So, get put to sleep in 5-10 seconds. That should be terrible. I have a move that I like a lot, which I pull guard to the armbar, right away. And I submitted several people in less than 10 or 15 seconds. And I felt bad for them, way worse than I felt for the ones that I smashed for 10 minutes.
And I do remember Carlson Senior talking about this. You always go for the neck. He always kept saying, there's no heroes when it comes to choke. Everybody goes to sleep.
Exactly.
Everybody goes to sleep. Yeah. What a phenomenal stories. I mean, it has to feel good to. Have you ever thought about that? How lucky you were and are to start all of this way back with some of these big names that you're mentioning, Liberio, Bustamante, and De La Riva. And Carlson Gracie Senior, Junior. I mean, this is just a small list. I mean, there's so many of them out there, and all of them are, very, very successful today, and they are pioneers. And, do you find yourself as a pioneer of this?
I don't think I'm a pioneer. I wasn't even close to their achievements. Like none of these guys, I was never even close to what they achieved when they were professional competitors, because when I got my black belt in 1999 and I fought the first time in 2000, right after that, I graduated from university, and I started working super hard in a big company, and I couldn't compete anymore. I was training, but like twice or three times a week, not every day anymore. So I was training, but not as hard, and I was working super hard. So my days of competition were over pretty soon, because there was I wanted to succeed in life, like financially and all that stuff. So I couldn't rely on jiu-jitsu because there was no money to be made unless I would go to Vale Tudo, to MMA, which I tried to. I went to Japan with Rodrigo Minotauro for his camp. I was training super hard, no gi and MMA in general. And he invited me to go with him to do the camp in Japan. So I stayed there for almost a month with Minotauro, with Renato Babalu, and some of the other guys that were fighting there. And I got to train with them. I got to do the whole camp. I saw Minotauro win $250,000 in that night. It was amazing. When I came back to Brazil, when I returned to Brazil, I was like, man, this is what I'm going to do. So I started pushing hard on my training to debut in MMA. And I got injured in my neck. So I had a neck injury, a cervical injury that I wouldn't move from the neck down for 3 days. So I went to the hospital. I stayed there for 3 days without moving my arms or legs. My son was just born. That was 2001. I was 25 years old. My son was just born, and I couldn't move a limb. When I saw myself in the hospital, I was like, okay, in the ICU, I said, man, I'm not doing this anymore. Like I'm not going to walk anymore, maybe. So I'm not going to, if I ever walk again, I'm not going to go to MMA or anything like that. So that was a promise I did, and I promised I kept. When I walked again 3 days later, and I had my son in my lap and all that stuff, and I was like, okay, you're going to have a normal life in maybe a couple of years, because you're going to have to go through a lot of treatment, so you don't have any, how do you call when you have something that's lasting? It's lasting after you had the injury. Was that?
Any lingering effects?
Yeah, any lingering effects, exactly. So you're probably not going to have any lingering effects, but we have to go under treatment and a lot of PT and all that stuff. So I did everything I had to do for the next year and a half or 2 years. And finally, in 2004, I was able to compete again, and then I started competing again, but it was too late for me to catch up.
Have you thought about quitting jiu-jitsu at that time?
Yeah, no, I actually couldn't do jiu-jitsu for almost 2 years. I couldn't. It's not a matter of quitting. I just couldn't. I couldn't look up.
But have you thought about it? Like when you were in that hospital, or you were recovering from whatever the post time is of that event, has it ever crossed your mind, I will never ever step on the mat again? Like this, I'm done. This is over.
No, never. After the doctor said I would walk again, I said, okay, so I'm going to train again. If I'm walking, I'm training. I don't know how long it's going to take. I like it too much. I'm too much in love with that. I'm not gonna. That was like I was training for 7, 8 years already. So like that was something for life. Like I would never quit on jiu-jitsu. I was about to not walk again. And then when they said, okay, you're going to have a normal life eventually. So normal life for me is training jiu-jitsu. It has to be included. I don't see myself out of the mats in no way. I can't even fathom the idea. It's terrible.
How much time was it between the injury and the time when you returned on the mat?
Roughly 2 years.
2 years. Okay, talk about the very first time you step on the mat after the 2 years.
I wasn't that. I'm not that romantic. Like I don't even remember the first day, because what I was doing some PT on the mats.
Okay.
You know, when I started like movements and I was starting to do some more dynamic thing, I went to the mats with the professional, and he would treat me on the mats, like with the balls and all the weights and stuff like that on the mat. So I felt much better right there and there. And I put the gi on. I don't remember when the first time I put the gi on, but I put the gi on. I was able to roll with a child, and then I started increasing the pace and increasing the hardness. And like when I looked again, I was like about to compete again.
But
it's part of my life. I never saw myself outside of jiu-jitsu, even when I was outside of jiu-jitsu. I was always talking about it. I was with people surrounding me from jiu-jitsu. So,
but you're talking about something really important.
Yeah.
A lot of times it happens when students get hurt, or maybe life throws something at them where they cannot train. They completely disconnect. They just go away. They put jiu-jitsu completely on the side. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to. It's the thought of, I can't do it. I'm not even going to go there. I'm not even going to show up to the academy. I'm not going to talk to my friends. Some students do that, and talk about how important it is to stay connected. Even though you can train, even though you can compete, is it important to visit the academy, see how your friends are, see how your training partners, what they are doing, what they are learning, maybe do some of the PT on the mat?
I spoke to one of my friends, one of my good friends back then. He's a surfer. He was a professional surfer, and he said the same thing you just said. If you stay connected, it's going to be easier. So I stayed connected for as much as I could. It wasn't an effort. Like there's not too many places to go. Like when I was in the situation that I was, I didn't see any. Oh, I'm not gonna go. Like everything always drove me back to jiu-jitsu. Like I would go to the place I would do PT. There was a jiu-jitsu gym right there, an academy right there. So I'll go downstairs and see the people. They knew me, I knew them. We would talk. They will help me with this, with that, with stretching, with moving. So I mean, it was part of my daily life. So I never saw myself apart. Or I never saw myself like, oh, I'm not going to go there. But with there was so close. I was always so much around jiu-jitsu, and jiu-jitsu was so much a part of my life back then that I don't think there's like, it's like here, if someone gets injured here, it's easy. Like in Miami, it's easy not to show up at the gym because you have so much to do. And you have friends from other like niches and situations, and they're not completely not involved in jiu-jitsu. But most of my friends, if not like almost 100% of my friends in Brazil, were related to jiu-jitsu some way, somehow. The ones that were not were my family, because my family, no one trained in my family other than my cousin that took me to jiu-jitsu. So I would just be around my friends, and being around my friends is being around jiu-jitsu. And they would, oh, let's go to the gym just so you can watch us training. And I would go there and see the training and talk to people. So I was always around it. Like it wasn't a thing. It never crossed my mind not to be around jiu-jitsu in any moment. Even if I was in a wheelchair, I would go to a gym and because I just like it too much. Like a surfer. Okay, say a surfer can't walk again. They will go to the beach and sit there and watch surfing. You know,
because
probably
it's more than jiu-jitsu. It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
It's a lifestyle.
That's what I told you. It's a lifestyle. It's not a competition. It's not a martial art. It's not a sport for me. It's lifestyle, 100%.
Phenomenal. What a beautiful, I mean, I just like, I'm just trying to sponge everything that you're telling us and you're sharing with us. What a beautiful story with so much experiences. Listen, before we start wrapping this up, we've been at this for almost an hour. Before we start wrapping this up, what we do at the end of every episode, our previous guest asked a question, but he didn't know that you will be answering that question. So he asked a question with completely blind, okay? Gary's going to ask you that question, and it's going to create interesting wrap-up to the episode.
Yeah, so this is from Nick Sanders, and he wants to know, what is the biggest difference between old school jiu-jitsu and new age jiu-jitsu?
The white geese.
The smell?
Yeah, the amount of sponsors, the smell, defense soap.
Defense soap.
Like, so there's so many, like, dyed hair for competition. My day to work.
That's Comprito.
Yeah, Comprito was coloring.
Comprito.
No, he used to he does green. He doesn't dye his hair.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, how do you want to say we take out the collar?
He bleaches it.
Bleaches it.
Yeah.
Bleaches,
Yeah.
Bleaches it, yeah.
Bleaches hair.
Yeah, he has his own process. Like I talked to him, his own process. Yeah,
100%. But yeah, well, biggest difference. Everybody has like 5 or 6 geese nowadays. You have one, maybe 2. That's a big difference. Old school, new school is like you have 1 gi, maybe 2. That's it. It doesn't matter how rich you are.
Let me ask you this, and we used to ask every guest this. Every guest we ask this question, but I'm going to bring it back because now I'm curious because I come from the same. I'm generation after you. I started in 2000. So you were black belt when I started, but in a similar mentality said, do you wash your belt?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Did everybody wash their belts way back then?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Back then, I don't even know if I washed my belt because I would throw it. Like in Brazil, we have people working at home, like that you hire.
Yeah.
In the US, you don't. So I wash my own stuff here. But in Brazil, I didn't wash my stuff. I would just throw it in the kitchen and the lady would get it and wash it for me. I don't know if she washed I think she did. But it's not like, I never said, oh, don't wash my belt. I never care. Like if it's dirty, if it's smelling, it's stinky, just wash it.
Good for you. Good for you.
The power is in you. It's not in the belt. That's
We got yelled at for some guests.
A lot of people are still carrying that tradition. Hey, before we go, one quick question. You said earlier you don't want jiu-jitsu in the Olympics. Why?
No.
Why?
I don't, because I don't see any benefits from what we have in jiu-jitsu right now. Like, for instance, you have a bunch of academies and people living off of that. If it goes to the Olympics, probably we're going to have, it's going to be politicized first.
Yeah.
First thing's going to happen. It's going to be politicized. Like wrestling is politicized. In Brazil, judo is politicized. And you don't have a bunch of wrestling academies other than the ones in the universities that people are making money off of that, they're living off of that, as you don't have judo academies in Brazil that people are like in France. You can't make money off of judo because only if you're an Olympic athlete. But you have judo spread out in all the schools and everywhere. So why you're gonna sign into Fight Sports or Gracie Barra or Carlson Gracie Academy when you have jiu-jitsu being taught in your own school for free?
Yep.
So if you have that, and let's say you have 5,000 schools in the US, so all of them are going to have at least one black belt teacher. You're going to have 5,000 black belts. Can you imagine the low quality we're going to have with people teaching? You don't have 5,000 great black belts to teach. You might not even have 1,000. So it's going to be bad.
Yeah,
it's going to be bad. It's not going to look good. That's one of the aspects. The other aspect is, okay, how many countries you have actual representatives of jiu-jitsu that are going to do well in the Olympics? Like, is Brazil going to win it all? Is it going to be gi or no gi? Is it going to be both?
Yeah.
Like, it's so many questions. Oh, and another thing, it's not going to happen because how many rule sets we have currently. So you have to be one unified rule set, which is going to be IBJF 10-minute in the Olympics. I don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to be EBI. You're going to start in the back if you don't submit. That's ridiculous. It's going to be who's number one, 15-minute match, no points. Judges favor red. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, it definitely would change everything. It definitely would.
It would have to. Like, we have to reinvent jiu-jitsu, which I don't like the idea. Not even the sound.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. Hopefully, we're not going to get there. I don't know. I'm agreeing with you. I don't know. I don't necessarily think that it would be a good thing. It definitely would make jiu-jitsu more popular. But
more popular? How is it going to be more popular?
Well, from the aspect that more people would watch it, but I am not sure if that's a good thing. I'm not sure. I think that I like it what it is today.
Okay, let me ask you. How come more people are going to watch it if it's only every 4 years?
That's a good question. I think it might be a domino effect. If it's in the Olympics, it draws the attention, and there's more effort around the world for those sports to grow. That's I think what might be happening. But I do also think that if it's first of all, rule sets would have to be established, and then everything is getting locked into those rule sets. And at that point, we are looking at what judo is today. Right? And a lot of people talk about judo that is not the same as it was 10 years ago. The rules are by far more stingier. It's more narrow, and it's not as appealing as what judo used to be. And that's my biggest fear, that jiu-jitsu will become so small, so narrow, that the freedom of what jiu-jitsu is today will disappear. And as a result of it, we won't be able to run our businesses. We won't be able to do what we are doing. That freedom will disappear by the success of being in the Olympics arena, right? So I don't know. I agree with you that it's not necessarily a good thing, but
you can ask the surfers if they like the experience of the Olympics. I don't know if I don't know if they are able to see, because the surfing went to the Olympics, but it's not going to be in every Olympics because not every place will have a beach to host.
Place to do it, yeah.
So it's going to be tough for them, but it's very, very politicized, and you're going to have people from the government interfering in jiu-jitsu. Please, no. I don't want to see that.
Well, let's see what happens. Let's keep our fingers crossed that it's not going to happen, and then continue evolving jiu-jitsu to the beautiful sport that it is today. Before we finish this, where can listeners find you? If anybody wants to connect with you, and we know you're in Florida, but any social media, websites, anything, where are you accessible?
Right. So I train at Fight Sports Miami with Cyborg and all the peeps here. I have my Instagram is at Viktor Doria with a K, Viktor Doria. So I'm very active there. And I have my own YouTube channel, which I'm going to start doing videos. Like I do a lot of analysis, competition analysis, but I only do it in Portuguese because the guys in Brazil asked me to start doing it like probably five years ago. And I started doing it. It's pretty successful. People are always watching, but I want to start doing it in English as well. So it's probably going to start by the end of this year. I'm going to start doing the analysis in English as well.
That's cool. Excellent. Phenomenal. And as always, we'll include all the links in the show notes so you guys can check out his YouTube channel and connect with him as you wish. All right. Thank you for being here. That's number one. Number two, thanks for sharing the beautiful stories, and some of them crazy, some of them funny, but all of them have a lesson in them, and I'm hoping that a lot of our listeners really will take some golden nuggets out of this and continue training jiu-jitsu. Gary?
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate it, and your passion shows through. It was fun to just sit back and let you go and not have to worry about it. An hour went by really, really quick. So thank you for that.
And as I always say, if you're ever in Chicago area, let us know. Stay in touch, and I would love to have you to visit my academy.
100%. Now that you invited me, it's good because Cumprido never invited me to his gym.
There you go. And he's only like half hour away. Yeah. So
We'll bring you guys together. We'll get you together.
There you go. He's a good friend. I like him a lot.
All right, Professor. Thank you for being with us. Let's wrap this up for today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to ROL Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.